Welcome to this brief introduction to public and patient involvement in NIHR fellowship applications. This presentation forms part of a series on fellowship applications from the RDS East Midlands. Patient and public involvement, known as PPI, is a requirement for research funding for funders such as NIHR. This includes fellowships. But what is PPI? Involve define PPI in research as research being carried out with or by members of the public rather than to, about or for them. It is important not to confuse public involvement with research participation, for example asking people to take part in a trial or interviewing patients about their views and experiences. With this in mind, take care with the language you use, for example avoid terms such as focus groups and participants. Another important distinction is between the perspectives of the public and the perspectives of people who have a professional role in health and social care. So avoid involving health professionals in your public involvement work. Consider stakeholder involvement, but remember that this is different to PPI. The term public can include members of the general public, patients, potential patients, carers and other people who use health and social care services, as well as people from organisations that represent people with health conditions such as charities. So let's talk about why PPI is important. Firstly, there is the obvious reason: funders expect it. It is highly likely that your application will be severely criticised and potentially rejected if the PPI is not good quality. The public contributors who review applications and sit on the fellowship interview panels are skilled at assessing the commitment of applicants to PPI. Token PPI will jeopardise your application. Then there are the broader democratic principles of citizenship, accountability and transparency. But what I'm going to concentrate on next is the third reason for conducting good quality PPI, the relevance and quality of your research. Because unless you understand this, you're unlikely to conduct high quality research and to put together a competitive application. By providing a different perspective, members of the public can improve the quality and relevance of the research in a wide variety of ways. They can, for example, highlight a wider set of research topics and ensure that the research questions are focused on their interests. They can also increase participation in your research by checking what you are planning to do is acceptable to the potential research participants and ensuring that study documents are clear, so for example promotional leaflets and consent documents. They can also advise you on how to include seldom heard groups and advise you on how and when to advertise your study and by promoting the study to potential participants. They can also ensure that your outcome measures are meaningful to patients. They can improve follow-up rates and completeness of data, for example, by ensuring that any burdens are acceptable, making language and content of information more appropriate, etc. They can highlight any ethical issues and help you to address them. Good PPI can help address the concerns that ethics committees may have about your research. They can also help you to plan and conduct dissemination activities. These are just examples of how your research design can be improved by conducting good PPI. But what constitutes good PI is dependent on the exact nature of your project. Don't forget to include in your application how this involvement work has impacted on the design of your research. It may, for example, have led you to change the timings or nature of any follow-up appointments. It might have led you to include a new group of participants in your interview study, for example, carers of very ill patients or partners of pregnant women. I want to move on to talking more specifically about the inclusion of PPI in fellowship applications. Depending on your profession and the stage in your research career, PPI may be unfamiliar to you. This is not necessarily a problem. Remember that a fellowship represents part of the pathway towards becoming an independent researcher, so see this as an opportunity for the development of public involvement skills that will be invaluable to you in your future research career. Applicants can feel that this is a bit of a chicken and egg situation. On the one hand, the fellowship will equip you with the PPI skills, but at the same time, you need to demonstrate these skills in the application. To answer this, ensure that you have appropriate supervision and membership in PPI, and that you engage with this expertise at the application writing stage. Failure to do so may lead the panel to conclude that your supervision or mentorship is inadequate. This is something that you must try and avoid for any aspect of the fellowship application, including PPI. Next, I'm going to concentrate on some tips for successful PPI in your application. First, considering your PPI early in your preparation is essential to producing a high-quality application. You will need to demonstrate how the PPI has influenced your application, as well as the PPI you are planning for the application if it's successful. Think carefully about who to involve. It is preferable to involve more than one contributor in order to benefit from increased experience and skills, and so that they can support each other. This will also reduce the pressure on the contributors, for example, if they are ill or have other commitments. Your project will determine the type of perspectives you need, but seek diverse views rather than representativeness. Think about and describe how you will find people. You may wish to advertise in surgeries, clinics, or on the radio. You may wish to talk to health professionals who have day-to-day contact with patients. Use the People in Research website to advertise your study. Build relationships with organisations such as charities. Note that there are some special considerations for involving your own patients in PPI. To get the most from your public contributors and for them to get the most from contributing to your research, it's highly likely that you'll need to offer training and support. The type of support required will be dependent on the skills and expertise of your contributors and the needs of the project. It may include both formal and informal training, such as attending training sessions or courses, on-the-job training, peer support, mentorship or support from other members of the team. Consult the potential contributors about their training and support needs at the planning stages. As a quick aside, do manage expectations. Always remind contributors that the work may not be funded. You need to plan the training to show that what you're proposing is appropriate, but also in order to ensure that it's fully costed in your application. And I want to talk briefly about costing your PPI work. This is important not only to ensure that you can cover the costs, but also because properly costed PPI demonstrates commitment to meaningful PPI. So think about all the costs involved, such as providing training and support, the contributor's time, travel and other expenses such as childcare, accessible venues, refreshment costs, etc. Moving on to how to involve your public contributors. Again, this is dependent on the nature of your research and the needs of your contributors. It can vary throughout the life cycle of your study. You should think about the needs of the population. So, for example, vulnerable patients or those with rare diseases might prefer virtual contact. A population with hearing loss, for example, might benefit from face-to-face contact. They may offer advice via a project steering group throughout the project's life cycle. They may contribute on a one-off basis at various stages of the study, for example, developing topic guides for interviews or materials such as participant information sheets. Different tasks don't necessarily have to involve the same contributors. You may also want to use different approaches at different stages of the project. For example, consultation, where you ask for their views to inform your decision, or collaboration, which is more of an ongoing partnership of shared decision making, or carry out user-controlled research where patients and public take the lead. This is rare though, particularly for early career fellowships where you might be expected to do most of the work yourself. Do ask the members of the public for their views on the nature of this involvement, such as when they would like to be involved and the type of involvement. You also need to think about the stages of the research cycle and how you could incorporate PPI. Involvement of the public can take place at different stages of the research cycle. I've only got time to mention them really briefly here. You can involve them in identifying and prioritising research in a variety of ways. For example, discussions with existing groups, inviting people to an event, attending meetings held by service user groups, or perhaps a survey. Also, look for published priorities, for example, the James Lind Alliance. Often applicants have already identified a research topic, but you can still make sure that the topic is relevant to the members of the public and include some of their ideas. Members of the public will definitely be involved in the commissioning of research, such as reviewers or panel members, etc. How they can help you in the design of your research we discussed earlier when talking about contributing to the quality of the research. They can also be involved in the management of the research, for example, as part of a management committee, for example. In undertaking the research, they might be involved, for example, in conducting interviews and data analysis. This may not be appropriate, though, for early research careers, where you'll be doing most of the work yourself as part of your development. In disseminating research, they might produce plain English summaries, present at conferences, and speak to support groups. At the implementation stage, you can make use of their passion for getting change into practice. Don't forget to evaluate the impact of your PPI. What worked well and what didn't can help future researchers. So there's a lot for you to think about if you're new to PPI, but your local RDS can support you with this. We can help you with all aspects of your fellowship application, including helping you to think about how members of the public can support the fellowship, helping you to refine the research questions so that it's relevant to the patients and the public, getting access to specialist advice in PPI. We can help you cost your PPI activity and arrange mock interviews and review panels, and these can include a public contributor. We also offer small grants to facilitate PPI activities. The East Midlands RDS offers up to £150 for fellowships, but unfortunately not for pre-doctoral awards at this moment. Please contact us as early as possible. So just to summarise, PPI is an important aspect of your fellowship application. Funders expect to see it. Where there is no section to describe it in the application form, make sure you weave it throughout your application. No one-size-fits-all projects. Appropriate patient and public involvement is dependent on the nature of your research and the level of the award. So, speak to your local RDS for individual advice.